Hello, everybody. It is a thrill and an honor to be here. We're going to talk about two revolutions. The first is the revolution of behavioral science, and the second is the revolution of nudging. These are two ideas that are having resonance in nations all over the world. They're changing the practices of corporations. They're changing the practices of governments. And I'm going to try to say something about these two revolutions. Developments. We see in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in Canada, in the Netherlands, in France, in Italy, and Colombia, the rise of behavioral insights teams. These are teams that are interested in how human beings actually process information, how we think. They're interested in how we react when government does one thing rather than another. They're focusing on issues like the environment, health, obesity, energy, transportation to try to save lives. The World Bank in its 2015 report emphasizes the importance of insights into how people actually make decisions, suggesting whether we're talking about disease, corruption, children's development, climate change, we can do a lot better if we understand how people process information. Just last month and a half ago, President Obama issued a new executive order. It's one of historic importance that emphasizes the importance of behavioral insights, research in psychology and behavioral economics about how people actually make decisions. How did we get here? How did this behavioral revolution start? The answer lies in social science, and it involves a pretty fundamental transformation of ideas from 1960 to 2000, and these have all been challenged in the last decades. Most of the people in this room are rational. You all look rational. But if you're deciding what to do in the next week, it would be surprising if you calculate probabilities and always maximize expected value. Several Nobel Prizes have been given for the idea that that's exactly what people do, but it's not exactly so. The old idea is if you want to change behavior, you change people's incentives. You give them a little more money, or you threaten them. Those can be helpful, but they're not the whole picture. Here's what we've learned starting in the 1970s. People often show present bias. That means today is important, and tomorrow, 2017, not so much. With respect to our health, our economic situation, the well-being of those we care about, we often think a lot about next month, but not too much about 2 years from now. People don't like losses from the status quo. If I told half of you you're going to have to give me some money after this talk, you'd feel very sad, I think. If I told the rest of you I'm going to give you money after this talk, you'd be happy, but you'd be more sad than you'd be happy. People don't like losing. People often are unrealistically optimistic. About 90% of drivers think that they're safer than the average driver. About 94% of college teachers think they're better than the average college teacher. With respect to various risks, people often miscalculate. They don't do well with probabilities, and they are a little more optimistic than reality warrants. We know that in assessing risk, people often ask not what are the statistics, but what have I experienced? In thinking about crime or health, they ask, can I think of cases in which crime occurred or in which someone I know got sick? They don't think about statistics. That's not terrible, but it can lead to errors. If you think about what's available to your mind, you can make big mistakes with respect to probability. We know that people's attention is limited. This is a little movie in which people are asked to count basketball passes. In the middle of the movie in which they're counting passes, a gorilla comes on the screen. People don't see the gorilla. Believe it or not, they miss the gorilla. The reason is once you are counting passes, you're focused on the basketball, not on the gorilla. Life is often like that. We miss gorillas. As I noted, people hate losses, they like losses, they dislike losses a lot more than they like corresponding gains. Okay, what do you do about this? Here are some behavioral policy claims. Whenever you encounter a situation, there's a choice architecture behind it. If a candy bar has a green wrapper, if you care about your health and the environment, you're likely to be interested in it, even if it's pure milk chocolate. If you sign a form at the beginning, you're more likely to be honest than if you sign a form at the end. There's an architecture there, and it affects what people do. People often can use a nudge. Okay, what is a nudge? This little elephant is being nudged by the big elephant. See? That big elephant respects the freedom of choice of the little elephant. I've met both elephants, they're friends of mine. The little elephant is being nudged. There's a nudge, it's a GPS. Your GPS tells you how to get to the destination that you want to go, but you can ignore the GPS if you don't like what it says. It's nudging you. Often private and public institutions, banks, governments, credit card companies, people who are trying to sell you soda or fish, they are nudging you, and some nudges get you in the direction that you want to go. Some nudges get you in the direction they want you to go. This is my only scandalous slide. It's a urinal. Forgive me. It's not just any urinal. This is a famous urinal in the Netherlands. In this urinal, they painted a fly on the urinal because they had a problem in the Netherlands airport of spillage. The result of painting the fly there was to reduce spillage by 44%. Apparently, men can't help but aim at the fly. There's a large lesson there for many aspects of life. We need someone to paint a fly for us. Here's a nudge that went wrong. Here's a savings plan in the United States. The simple idea is a lot of Americans aren't saving enough money for retirement. We could force them to save more money, but we could nudge them. The nudge is you're automatically enrolled in a savings plan. If you don't like it, you can say, I don't want to be in that plan. Of course, we have a Social Security system as well. This supplements the Social Security system. And notice that every point in the income distribution, switching to automatic enrollment means people are saving more money. It's a nudge. They are automatically in an extra savings plan. In Germany, setting the default energy provider to green energy increased environmentally preferred energy use by a factor of 10. What was done by experimenters was saying, okay, you're automatically in green energy. If you don't like it, you can go away and have some other form of energy. People didn't opt out. This was a very successful environmental program, and it was just a nudge, automatic enrollment. A nudge is a feature of the social environment that affects choices without imposing coercion or any kind of material incentive. No fines, no jail sentences, no civil penalties, no subsidies, just altering the environment. In the United States, we have an idea for financial reform Know before you owe. Know before you owe. It's partly a response to the financial crisis. People get in trouble because they don't have a nudge that tells them how much they're going to owe. For healthcare, one problem is people aren't informed about the health consequences of their choices. Inform them, don't coerce them. For childhood obesity, and I'll give you some more details soon, there are nudges that can help a great deal in giving people some protection against diabetes, heart disease, and other health problems. I got to work for the president. That's right outside the White House. I was very lucky for 4 years. And in that conversation, I was speaking to him about how to make our government simpler, less complicated, working more effectively for people by not confusing them, having good nudges rather than confusion. One thing we did was to say children in the United States don't have to sign up for meals to which they are entitled. If they're poor, they are automatically in. 12 million kids are getting the meals to which they're entitled as a result of the program. Here's an old food pyramid we used to have to help people eat healthy. It's pretty terrible, isn't it? If you look at that, do you know what you're supposed to eat? There's someone, male or female, unclear, marching to the top of a pyramid. What are these foods at the bottom? Bottom right, it looks like a shoe. Is the government saying you're supposed to eat shoes? We eliminated that and got instead a food plate. Very simple. The basic idea is sometimes in our lives, we don't help people with nudges because we give them the equivalent of a pyramid, where what they need is a plate. They need something that is understandable and simple. There's a smart cafeteria. That's a cafeteria which has healthy foods at the beginning. It makes a huge difference to what people eat. If the healthy foods are at the beginning, they can eat the chocolate, it's at the end, but healthy foods at the beginning have a major impact on people's dietary choices. It can have a big effect. No coercion, no mandates. Do nudges work? Absolutely. We have a credit card law that is trying to disclose information to people, not to require that they not get credit cards. It's a disclosure law. $20 billion are being saved annually as a result of that law. Okay, there are some dilemmas, and I'm just going to tell you about two for the future. Dilemma number one is that one form of nudge that we can all use in our lives, whether we're working for government or in the private sector or just with our friends, is ask people what they want. Just ask them. You probably are, in many respects, in situations that you didn't particularly choose. Nobody asked you. Just ask. Active choosing is often the best nudge. Personalized default rules, that's a complicated phrase. It just means setting up a default that fits people's own situations. So a young person should have a different health plan than an old person. A healthy person different from an unhealthy person. Give them by default something that suits their own situations. What is the problem of poverty a problem of? In part, it's a problem of they don't have enough money. Yes? You haven't learned anything from what I just said. That's not informative. You knew that. Here's something a little bit new. The problem of poverty is partly a problem of a lack of mental bandwidth, meaning you're thinking so much about how to solve financial problems that you don't have time to think about other things. If people are asked to take an intelligence test, poor people aren't stupider than rich people. They're both about the same. But if you ask poor people to solve a financial problem first and then take an IQ test, their IQ goes down. That has implications for policy. If the problem poor people face is often they're just overwhelmed by financial decision-making, then one thing we don't want to do is increase the overwhelming. We want to make things simpler for them. Okay, so we've learned to expand the set of policy tools, understanding first behavioral science, what human beings are actually like, and I gave you a glimpse, to think of tools that involve nudges, preserve freedom of choice, but make each of us in our lives as family members, working for companies, working for governments, nudge people and nudge them for good. Let them go their own way, but act like a helpful GPS. Closing words for you from an Irishman, William Butler Yeats. I hope you'll remember this. Do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking. That's my nudge for you. Thanks.